Rome, September 1943, before dawn. The city smells different now. It has smelled different since the armistice was announced 8 days ago. A smell that is not quite smoke and not quite stone dust, but something between them. The smell of a situation that has not yet resolved into anything definite. The ancient buildings stand exactly as they always have. The Tiber moves. The churches are dark at this hour. No ordinary morning follows an ordinary night anymore. Only the waiting, which has become its own kind of weather. A woman moves through the Trastevere neighborhood with a shawl pulled close, and her eyes moving carefully between the street ahead and the doorways on either side. She is not running. Running draws attention. She walks at the pace of someone with a legitimate reason to be outside before dawn, which she has. Bread, if there is bread, from the baker on the Via della Lungareta, who sometimes opens early when he has something to sell. Her hands are tucked inside the shawl. In one hand she holds a small amount of money, enough for bread, not more. In the other, she holds nothing, which means the hand is free. She has learned to keep one hand free. She is perhaps 35, perhaps older. Rome in September 1943 has the same effect on faces as every other occupied city. It compresses certain qualities and expands others, leaving people looking simultaneously more alert and more tired than their ages would otherwise suggest. The situation in Rome on this morning is this. The armistice with the Allies was signed on September 3rd and announced on September 8th. In the days that followed, the Italian government collapsed, the king fled, and the city found itself in the space between two certainties, no longer fighting alongside one power, not yet liberated by another. Into this space, German forces moved quickly. She knows this without reading official notices. She knows it from the sounds of the past 8 days, from the conversations in doorways, from the faces of the men in her building who have not left their apartments since the 9th. The baker is open. There is bread, dark, dense, a small amount. She pays and takes what she can carry under the shawl and returns the way she came, choosing a slightly different route for no reason she could fully explain, except that varying the route is something she has begun to do automatically. Back in the apartment building, she distributes what she has. Not equally. The family on the second floor has 3 children, so they receive more. The old man on the top floor receives less, but does not complain because he has told her he eats less than he used to, and this seems to be true. The remainder she takes to her own room and places in the ceramic jar on the shelf beside the window. The window faces an interior courtyard. She has not opened the shutter that faces the street since the 9th. In 1943, Rome, the food situation has been deteriorating for 2 years. Rationing began in 1941. Bread, pasta, meat, oil, sugar, all controlled and progressively reduced. By September 1943, the official ration provides approximately 1,000 calories per day, less than half of what an active adult requires. She manages on this the way people manage on insufficient things, by supplementing through informal channels, by eating less than she needs and telling herself she is not hungry, by moving more slowly than she used to in order to spend less energy. She has lost weight she did not have to lose. She does not examine this in a mirror. The informal channels are maintained by women like her, moving through the city at careful hours, exchanging information the way traders exchange goods. This shop received something yesterday. That market has oil if you arrive before 8. Someone on the Via Arenula knows a farmer who comes into the city on Thursdays. By midday, the apartment building has settled into its altered routine. Doors open and close carefully. Voices are kept low. Children have been instructed not to go into the street and mostly comply, understanding without being fully told that compliance matters in ways it did not before the 9th. She spends the afternoon mending, there is always mending, and listening. Listening is not passive in Rome in September 1943. It is active work. The sounds of the street carry information. Ordinary foot traffic, vehicle engines that are or are not military, voices in languages that are or are not Italian. She has become able to identify the difference between these sounds without moving to the window. Once in the early afternoon, a vehicle stops below. She does not move. She continues with the mending. The needle moves through the fabric, in and out, steady and small. After some minutes, the vehicle moves on. She sets the mending in her lap and sits for a moment before continuing. The neighborhood communicates through walls and courtyards and the narrow passages between buildings that Romans have been using for 2,000 years for exactly this kind of lateral movement. A woman 2 floors above drops a basket from her window with a note inside to the woman across the courtyard, who reads it and burns it, and sends the basket back with a brief reply. A man who knows another man who knows a third man who has access to information about what is happening in the northern neighborhoods passes this information southward through a chain that takes most of the afternoon and arrives incomplete but sufficient. They do not meet. Meeting costs something that no one is certain they can afford right now. So they communicate through walls and baskets and the compressed language that cities under pressure develop, in which a particular knock means one thing and a particular silence means another. Evening. The curfew is 10 o'clock. Before 9, the building is fully inside itself, doors closed, lights minimal. She prepares the evening meal, water, a small amount of dried pasta, oil, whatever vegetable can be added. The smell of cooking moves through the building in the way smells always move through Roman buildings, through the walls, it seems, through the stone itself, which has absorbed centuries of this particular kind of ordinary life. She eats at the table with the shutter facing the courtyard open and the shutter facing the street closed. The courtyard is dark. A cat moves along the opposite wall with the specific confidence of animals that understand that what is happening around them does not concern them. She watches it until it disappears. In Rome in September 1943, the ordinary had not disappeared. It had gone underground, quite literally in some cases, into basements and cellars, and the spaces beneath churches that Romans have always known about and occasionally needed. But mostly it continued above ground, in reduced and careful form, in the persistence of bread queues and mending and evening meals, and the maintenance of the informal networks that cities run on, whether or not anyone in authority is aware of them. The shutter facing the street remains closed. The cat is gone. She washes the bowl, sets it on the shelf, and prepares for the night.